I built my entire life around the cosmos. Manifestation, energy healing, crystals, chakras, you name it, I preached it. My name was Sasha Rain, and I had over 2 million followers on TikTok and Instagram, all hanging on my every post about aligning with the universe and unlocking inner divinity. I hosted full moon retreats in Bali, taught sound baths in Tulum, and spoke with certainty that we are our own gods. I had a massive crystal wall in my living room and charged them religiously under the moon. People trusted me. They came to me looking for peace, and I told them the answer was within, not in religion, not in Jesus, but in themselves. The retreat that changed everything was supposed to be a pinnacle momentous soul rebirth weekend in Costa Rica. 25 people showed up, each paying thousands for the experience. I remember planning the river baptism ceremony myself, not for any religion, of course, but to symbolize letting go of ego and returning to the source. I had the attendees dressed in white, carrying lotus flowers, chanting affirmations about their divine light, while I stood barefoot at the edge of the water, arms wide like a guru. The river looked peaceful, but underneath, the current was deceptively strong. When I stepped in, I slipped on the mossy stone. Everyone thought it was part of the show, like I was surrendering to the flow. But I wasn't. The river pulled me under, hard. I hit my head against something. I couldn't breathe. Panic set in instantly. My legs kicked but found nothing. My lungs burned. And then, silence. Just blackness. No stars, no colors, no swirling galaxies, no benevolent source, only void. I remember thinking, where's the light I always talked about? I had told thousands of people they'd float in love and vibration if they died with an open heart, but this felt nothing like love. This felt empty. And then suddenly I was somewhere else. It wasn't the universe. It wasn't a field of light. It was a place that felt realer than anything I'd ever known. My feet were bare, standing on something that felt like warm stone. A blinding golden light was ahead of me, too bright to look at, but I wasn't afraid. It radiated a presence so overwhelming, I dropped to my knees. And from the center of that light, someone stepped forward. He didn't say, "You are divine." He didn't say, "You are the universe." He said my name, Sasha, and I knew. It was Jesus. When he said my name, I felt everything I had ever believed shatter inside me. His voice wasn't booming or dramatic. It was soft, strong, piercing, like it cut through the thousands of affirmations I had chanted in my life, through the noise, the self-idolatry, the obsession with vibrations and frequencies. He didn't need to ask who I was. He knew. He knew everything. All my secrets were suddenly exposed. Not just my social media facade, but the things I hid even from myself. My pride, my lies. The times I told people their suffering was an illusion, while I silently suffered from depression and loneliness behind the camera. I had always said God was within us, that the divine didn't judge, but now I was standing in front of him, and I knew I was being judged. But he didn't accuse me. He didn't yell. He just looked at me. And in that look, I felt a love so terrifyingly pure, it broke me. It was like standing in front of someone you deeply hurt, but who still loves you more than you can understand. I started crying, weeping, because for the first time, I wasn't in control of the narrative. This wasn't a spiritual aesthetic. This was truth. I was always with you, Jesus said, stepping closer. Even when you taught people to ignore me. I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to say, but I helped people feel better. Or, I was spreading love, but I couldn't speak because I knew what he meant. I had used spirituality to create a world where I was the source, not him. I had led people away from God under the illusion of enlightenment. And he wasn't angry, he was grieved. You were searching for light, he said, but you were afraid of the cross. That word hit me like a thunderclap cross. I had mocked Christianity. I had called Jesus a myth. I had said the Bible was outdated, written by men. But now, I was in front of the man himself. And he wasn't a myth. He was glorious, uncontainable, and more real than any energy I had ever claimed to channel. Behind him, I saw a space open, a veil being lifted. I glimpsed what looked like eternity, and suddenly I realized I hadn't just stumbled into a cosmic dimension. I had died. I was dead. And I was standing in front of the one who held my eternity in his hands. "Sasha," he said again, this time with a sadness in his voice. "You were loved even before you looked for love." Then came the question I didn't expect, tone that terrified me more than death. "Will you finally follow me?" When Jesus asked me that, "Will you finally follow me?" I felt something collapse inside of me. It wasn't fear, it was surrender. And not the kind of surrender I used to preach, where people let go into some impersonal universe. This was different. This was personal. I realized then that the universe I worshipped had no voice, no eyes, no heart, but he did. He looked at me with a love that burned and healed at the same time. A love that saw everything and still wanted me. But I hesitated. Not because I didn't believe, but because I was ashamed. My whole life had been built on denying him. I had written books, led retreats, posted thousands of videos convincing others to turn inward instead of upward. I had mocked Christians, laughed at the idea of sin, and told people they didn't need a savior because they already were one. And now, here I was, realizing I was empty without him. "I'm not worthy," I whispered. "Not after what I've done." Jesus didn't flinch. He walked toward me, slowly, and as he came closer, I saw the marks on his hands. Not glowing energy, not symbols of cosmic wisdom, but scars. Real, raw scars that pulsed with love. And then he said the words that crushed me. "That's why I died for you." I broke. I fell to my knees and sobbed like a child. All my teachings, all my pride, all my spiritual ego fell off like old skin. In that moment, I realized something terrifying and beautiful. I had been trying to ascend to a place I could never reach on my own. The truth wasn't that I was already divine. The truth was that I needed to be saved. He reached down and lifted Minot with hands of force, but with mercy. And I could feel it, not just metaphorically. I felt something spiritual inside me shift. As if a veil was torn, my heart felt warm, clean, like I was breathing for the first time. Behind him, the light grew stronger. It was not the soft glow of some universal consciousness. It was radiant holiness, a place so pure it felt like it would burn anything false away. And I knew that's where he was from, where he wanted me to go. But I also knew I wasn't going yet. "Sasha," he said, "you must return. Tell them who I am." Before I could respond, a great rushing sound filled the space like a wave crashing, but made of wind and thunder. My vision blurred. The light faded. And then, cold, pain, gasping, screams. I was back in my body. The first thing I felt when I came back was pain. My lungs were on fire. I was coughing up water, eyes burning from the sun, the river, and something deeper I couldn't explain. People were shouting. Someone was pressing on my chest. I could barely open my eyes, but I heard a voice yelling, "She's breathing, she's back." I wanted to scream, not from fear, but because I didn't want to come back. I had just been with him, with Jesus. And now I was back in a broken world where people believed the same lies I used to preach. Everything felt different now. Off. Like I had slipped out of the matrix and couldn't plug back in. I sat up, trembling, drenched, dazed. Someone draped a towel over me, crying. I couldn't even look at them. My mind was still in that realm, still hearing his voice. Hours passed like seconds. Or maybe the other way around. They rushed me to a clinic nearby, and I just stared at the ceiling, silently reliving every second of that encounter. My assistant kept saying, "You almost died, Sasha. You scared us to death. But I didn't care. I didn't care about the retreat, the schedule, or my phone blowing up with worried DMs from followers. I just kept thinking, how do I go back to who I was when I've met the one I denied? The next day, we flew back to LA. Everyone assumed I would go live, tell some mystical story about my journey beyond, maybe spin it as a cosmic awakening or a download from the universe. That's what they expected. That's what I had trained them to expect. But I couldn't lie. Not anymore. I sat in my apartment staring at the wall, deleting pre-scheduled posts about full moon affirmations and vibrational energy. It all felt hollow now. Fake. One night, maybe 3 days after I came back, I pulled out the Bible my grandmother had given me years ago. I had laughed at it back then, tossed it into a drawer, buried beneath crystals and tarot cards. But now, I held it like a life raft. My hands trembled as I opened it, and I didn't even know where to start. But it opened randomly. It seemed to John 14:6. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. I dropped the book, because that's exactly what he had shown me. That night, I couldn't sleep. My followers were demanding an explanation. My sponsors were pressuring me to stick to the brand, and my entire empire built on self-deification was ready to collapse. But I had seen the truth, and now I had to decide. Do I follow him and lose everything? Or keep the Leand, lose my soul? I stared at my phone for hours, watching my follower count tick upward, millions of people waiting for their daily dose of Sasha Light. That's what they called me. Lightworker, energy channel, spiritual queen. But I felt none of it anymore. Not the power, not the clarity. Just a weight in my chest like a stone dragging me toward something real, something raw. Jesus had touched me in that place beyond death. I had met the one who was truth. How could I pretend it was anything else? But fear gripped me. My entire income, my brand deals, my identity, they were all wrapped in the New Age world. I had made videos mocking Christians, calling Jesus just another ascended master, a symbol of consciousness. But I had seen him. He was not a symbol. He was a person, alive, glorious, and undeniably real. I felt like a fraud now. Every video, every mantra, every retreat, I had been leading people away from the very one who had saved me. That night, I got on my knees. For the first time in my life, I actually prayed. Not to the universe, not to Source, but to Jesus. I don't even know how to do this, I whispered into the dark, shaking. But you know me. You called me by name. I want to follow you. Please, change me. I cried harder than I ever had before, not performative tears, not for views, but real, ugly, sobbing. I saw visions of all the people I'd misled, people who had trusted me, people who thought they were awakening, when really, they were drifting deeper into deception, and I had been the voice leading them there. I wanted to fix it all at once, but I didn't know how. The fear was overwhelming. If I spoke out, I'd lose everything. My followers would call me a sellout, a traitor, a brainwashed puppet of organized religion, and yet, I couldn't stay silent, not after what I'd seen. So, I did the unthinkable. I recorded a video. No makeup, no ring light, just me, raw. I stared into the camera and whispered, I need to tell you the truth about what happened in Costa Rica. And then I said, his name, Jesus. I explained it all, not some vague near-death insight for engagement. I spoke plainly. I had died. I had seen him. He had shown me my life and my lies, and he had loved me anyway. I told them the universe never spoke to me. It was Jesus who knew me. And he wasn't just some high-frequency energy. He was the Son of God. I knew as soon as I hit post that my world would never be the same. And I was right. The video went viral within hours, but not in the way I'd hoped. I thought people might at least be curious. Instead, the backlash was immediate and vicious. Comments flooded in, mocking me, calling me unstable, accusing me of selling out for clout. "You were our goddess," one follower wrote. "How could you betray the divine feminine like this?" Others accused me of being manipulated by Christianity's patriarchal mind control. I lost thousands of followers overnight. Sponsors pulled out, retreats were canceled. Even friends from my spiritual circles stopped replying. But the strange thing? I didn't feel fear anymore. I felt peace. It was like something had been lifted from my soul. For the first time in my life, I wasn't pretending. I wasn't performing. I wasn't chasing the next trend in the spiritual algorithm. I was finally aligned, but not with the stars, with the truth. I started reading the Bible every day. I found a church nearby and slipped into the back row one Sunday morning, hoodie pulled up, hoping no one would recognize me. The sermon wasn't flashy. No sound baths. No crystal grids. Just a humble pastor talking about grace, sin, and the blood of Jesus. And I wept again. Because it was the first time I felt like I belonged somewhere, not because I was praised, but because I was forgiven. I began to notice something else, too. Emails, quiet ones, from people who had watched my video and said it shook them. Some said they'd had dreams of Jesus too. Others confessed they'd always felt something missing in the New Age world, but didn't know what. One woman told me, "I've followed you for years, but this is the first time you actually saved me." That line stuck with me. It wasn't me who saved her. It was him. I no longer needed to be a guru. I didn't need to sell enlightenment. I was now just a witness, a broken former influencer who had met the real light of the world. Jesus didn't give me a brand. He gave me a second chance. The journey wasn't easy. Every day I faced doubt, loss, and the echoes of my old life. But something had shifted deep in my soul. Something unshakable. I started sharing my story not as Sasha the influencer, but as Sasha the forgiven. Not because I had all the answers, but because I knew the one who is the answer. And I knew this was just the beginning. People think conversion is a moment. But for me, it's been a constant death and resurrection. Every day, I've had to bury pieces of the old Sasha who curated her image down to every filtered post, who sold spiritual lies packaged in pastel colors and poetic captions. The Sasha who believed that pain was just energy, that guilt was a vibration to be dismissed, that truth was whatever made you feel good. But the truth doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it cuts deep. Sometimes it sets your soul on fire. The hardest part has been letting go of the influence. I built a kingdom of mirrors and fog, and now I was watching it all fall apart. I went from thousands of DMs a day to almost silence. The invites to speak on stages vanished. The energy brands stopped sending free products. One former colleague even publicly accused me of spreading religious trauma and urged others to unfollow me for toxic evangelism. But even in the loneliness, I found something I never had in all my years of New Age success. Truth without ego. I started meeting with a small group of believers who didn't care about my past, who didn't ask for selfies, who didn't need me to be light. They prayed with me, listened, shared their own brokenness. And slowly, the shame began to lift. I remembered what Jesus said in that place between life and death when I saw him in the light. "You were loved even before you looked for love." That sentence stayed etched in my soul like a tattoo. I had spent my life chasing love from followers, validation from strangers, trying to be divine in a world desperate for something real. But he had loved me before I ever tried to become goddess. And now, I wanted others to know him too. I began writing a book, not a manifesto on manifestation, but a raw testimony, from self to savior, why the universe couldn't save me. I poured everything into those pages, the darkness, the deception, the drowning, and the moment I saw the light, I didn't hold back. I even included screenshots of old posts and retreats as a confession of how far I had strayed, not to shame myself, but to show just how deep his mercy runs. I wasn't ashamed anymore, not of being rejected, not of being mocked, not even of my past, Because if Jesus could forgive Meth, the girl who told the world he wasn't real, then no one is too far gone. And I was ready to tell the world that. I never imagined this would be my life, that the woman who once sold crystal kits and 5D ascension courses would now be waking up every morning praying to the same Jesus she used to mock. But here I am. The peace I have now, it's not flashy. It's not something you can edit into a reel. It's not aesthetic. It's real. And it came at the cost of everything I used to be. I've lost money, influence, friends, reputation. But what I've gained? Eternity, grace, identity. A shepherd who calls me by name, no because I'm special, but because I'm his. People still reach out, some to mock, some to beg me to return to the old ways. You are so magnetic, they say. You healed me, you saved me. And I gently reply, I never did. That was never me. It was always him. Others reach out in whispers, quiet, curious. They've been feeling the same emptiness, the same fraudulence. They want to know if Jesus really is who I say he is. I don't argue. I don't preach. I simply tell them what I saw, what I know, that I died. And Jesus met me there. Not the universe. Not vibrations. Not some faceless cosmic energy. Jesus. And he loved me. Not because I earned it. Not because I manifested it. But because that's who he is. If you're watching this right now and you feel that same tug, the one I used to feel but ignored, please don't turn away from it. That's not the universe calling you. That's him. You don't need to cleanse your aura. You don't need to align your chakras. You need to surrender. And let the only one who conquered death heal your soul. I should have died in that river, but Jesus gave me back my life so I could finally live it for him. Not as Sasha the influencer, not as a guru, but as his, forever.